Tuesday, Parashat Noach in Chok Israel. We're learning today the halakha of Chok Israel today, the laws that have to do with charging interest, which is not allowed to charge interest on a loan that we give to a fellow Jew. First halakha here. Tzarich leizaher berivit. Person has to be very careful not to charge interest from a fellow Jew. Vekama lavin ne'emru bo. And there are many negative commandments that were said in the Torah regarding the sin of charging interest from a fellow Jew on a loan. Va'afilu alov, and not only the person who charged his interest who has a transgression, even the borrower who pays the interest, and even the guarantor on that loan, if there are witnesses on the note or on the transaction, they also transgress the avera of not lending to a fellow Jew with charging interest. Anyone who lends to a fellow Jew with charging interest, his possessions, his assets will crumble. That he is considered as though he denied the Yetziat Mitzrayim, the exodus from Egypt, and the God of Israel. And this charging interest from a fellow Jew is a grave, grave sin. However, a person is allowed to be a partner in a joint venture with a fellow Jew where he would benefit from the profits, where he would benefit from the income that that loan would generate to the person he lent the money to. And that's why there is such a thing called heter iska, which is a document that could be signed to to change a transaction from being a loan to being an investment, where a person would benefit from the profits that are made on that loan, but has to be a document that is worded correctly. Well, you could ask the question, what about if there are losses? So yes, a person who invests in a joint venture, he shares also in the risks involved in the losses. But rather than compute the benefits and compute what profits were made and come into discussions of what expenses could be included as some of the expenses of that joint venture, the document could be structured in such a way where the investor accepts a specific percentage as his share of the profits that will be made from that money. So that's why we have a document called heter iska that is done in situations where money is given to a person, and the person who invests the money can get a percentage of the profits, but it's not charging interest on a loan, because that would not be permitted. A person who gives a loan to a fellow Jew and pretends that the money is not his, he pretends that he's acting as the agent of a non-Jew in lending that money. Nobody would know about that except for Hashem. Hashem will exact punishment from such a person. Even if when the transaction was made, when the money was lent, there was no talk at all of charging interest. But on payback of the money, the borrower decides on his own to pay extra to show the lender that he wants to pay him as a favor more money, as a gift even. And even if he doesn't tell him that he's giving it to him as interest, that will be also forbidden to do. Even between close relatives, his son, his daughter, his father, where when they're not paying as interest, but they want to pay more money just as a gift, that also would not be allowed. And a person has to be very careful with these laws of charging interest to a fellow Jew, because unfortunately the money of interest that gets mixed up with the rest of the money of the person can affect negatively the other assets that the person has. And to charge interest to someone who's not Jewish is not forbidden. This halakha applies only amongst fellow Jews. Israel shelava ma'ot me'anochri beribit asur l'Yisrael liot ahev. Even if a Jew borrows money from a goy, where the goy can't charge him interest, you're allowed to pay interest to a goy, but a fellow Jew cannot be a guarantor on such a loan. Nochi shelava mi'Yisrael beribit, or the other way, a goy that borrows money from a Jew in a transaction where there is interest being paid on that loan, asur l'Yisrael liot lo ahev, it is forbidden for a fellow Jew to guarantee the loan for that non-Jew who borrowed from another Jew. In other words, a non-Jew borrows money from a Jewish person. He's going to pay interest, but he needs a guarantor. A fellow Jew should not be a guarantor on such a loan that is borrowed from a Jew at interest, even if the borrower was not Jewish. These were the halachot that we learned today in Chok L'Yisrael, halakha psuka for Parashat Noach for Tuesday. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.